Alexander Lukashenko was born on August 30, 1954, in the village of Kopys, located in the Vitebsk region of what was then the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic, part of the Soviet Union. His father, Nikolai Lukashenko, was a factory worker, and his mother, Galina Lukashenko, worked in local agricultural enterprises. From an early age, Alexander experienced the realities of life in a rural Soviet environment, including the value of hard work, community, and discipline. His upbringing was modest, shaped by the collective ethos of Soviet society and the rural work ethic of his family. He grew up in a society structured by the Communist Party, where loyalty, obedience, and conformity were central to social and political life. Lukashenko attended local schools, where he demonstrated strong organizational skills and a disciplined approach to studies. He was particularly interested in history and social sciences, subjects that later informed his understanding of statecraft and governance. His early education coincided with a period of relative stability in the Soviet Union, but he was also exposed to the hierarchical structures and mechanisms of control that characterized Soviet administration. These early experiences influenced his perception of authority, shaping the idea that centralized control and loyalty were essential to maintaining order and achieving societal goals. In 1975, Lukashenko graduated from the Mogilev Pedagogical Institute with a degree in history, a field that reinforced his understanding of the Soviet system, national identity, and the political and economic strategies of the state. During his university years, he became active in youth organizations aligned with the Communist Party, developing networks and gaining experience in political organization. He began working as a political instructor in the local Komsomol, the communist youth organization, which allowed him to exercise influence over young people and develop his skills in administration, discipline, and ideological enforcement. These early roles provided him with a foundation in the political culture of the Soviet Union and instilled a belief in the importance of centralized authority, order, and loyalty to the state. After completing his studies, Lukashenko began a career in local government and party administration. He was appointed to various roles overseeing agriculture and industrial management in the Vitebsk region. These positions provided him with insight into the practical workings of the Soviet economy, including resource allocation, bureaucratic management, and the enforcement of party policies. He gained a reputation for strict adherence to rules, assertiveness in decision-making, and intolerance for dissent within his administrative domain. This period was formative, as he learned how to navigate the complexities of Soviet governance, manage subordinate officials, and consolidate authority in his assigned territories. During the 1980s, Lukashenko further consolidated his career within the Communist Party, serving in increasingly senior positions in the regional administration. He became known for his efforts to combat corruption, enforce party discipline, and promote productivity in local enterprises. While these efforts were aligned with Soviet objectives, they also allowed him to cultivate an image of competence, decisiveness, and incorruptibility. His approach to governance emphasized order, control, and loyalty, traits that would later define his leadership style at the national level. Lukashenko's rise within the party reflected both his administrative skill and his ability to navigate the political structures of the Soviet system effectively. As the Soviet Union entered a period of economic stagnation and political transformation under the leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev, Lukashenko emerged as a regional figure with growing visibility. He observed the challenges of political reform, decentralization, and social unrest, noting the difficulties faced by Soviet leaders in maintaining authority while implementing change. These observations influenced his understanding of power, particularly the need for strong centralized control to prevent instability and maintain order. He developed a belief that leadership required not only political skill but also the ability to act decisively, suppress dissent, and prioritize national cohesion over individual freedoms. In 1990, as the Soviet Union began to crumble and republics moved toward independence, Lukashenko entered national politics, campaigning for a seat in the Supreme Soviet of the Belarusian SSR. He ran on a platform emphasizing anti-corruption, economic stability, and the defense of Soviet-era structures that he viewed as effective in maintaining order and productivity. His campaign resonated with voters who were anxious about the rapid changes, economic uncertainty, and political instability that characterized the late Soviet period. He was elected to the Supreme Soviet, marking the beginning of his transition from regional administrator to national political figure. Lukashenko quickly distinguished himself in the Supreme Soviet for his populist rhetoric, emphasis on law and order, and criticism of corruption among party officials. He positioned himself as a defender of ordinary citizens, presenting a message that combined Soviet-era stability with promises of reform and accountability. His approach appealed to a broad spectrum of the population, particularly older voters and those who had experienced the disruptions of economic liberalization and political decentralization. This period allowed him to consolidate political networks, refine his public image, and gain experience in national-level governance. In 1991, following the formal dissolution of the Soviet Union, Belarus declared independence. The country faced significant economic challenges, including the transition from a centrally planned economy to a market-oriented system, inflation, and shortages of goods and services. The political landscape was fragmented, with multiple parties competing for influence and widespread public dissatisfaction with the pace and nature of reforms. Lukashenko capitalized on these conditions, presenting himself as a stabilizing figure capable of restoring order, combating corruption, and ensuring continuity in governance. In 1994, Belarus held its first presidential elections, and Lukashenko ran as a candidate promising to defend national interests, maintain social stability, and prevent the chaos observed in neighboring post-Soviet states. He leveraged his reputation for discipline, his anti-corruption platform, and his populist messaging to appeal to voters concerned about economic hardship and political uncertainty. His campaign emphasized continuity with effective Soviet-era practices while promising pragmatic reforms, creating a broad base of support among both urban and rural populations. Lukashenko won the election decisively, assuming the presidency at a moment when Belarus faced both economic uncertainty and political fragility. Upon taking office, Lukashenko quickly moved to consolidate power and stabilize the government. He strengthened the executive branch, centralized decision-making, and maintained control over the military, police, and intelligence services. His administration emphasized state-led economic policies, including control over key industries, price regulation, and the preservation of social welfare programs inherited from the Soviet system. At the same time, he sought to limit political opposition, implement media oversight, and control public discourse. These measures were justified as necessary to prevent instability, protect national unity, and ensure the effective implementation of government policy. Alexander Lukashenko's decades in power have been defined by a combination of political consolidation, state control, economic management, and persistent controversy. After assuming the presidency in 1994, he quickly moved to centralize authority, restructuring the executive branch and strengthening oversight over legislative, judicial, and security institutions. Lukashenko positioned himself as a stabilizing force in a country facing economic uncertainty, social unrest, and the challenges of transitioning from Soviet governance to an independent state. His leadership style emphasized order, discipline, and loyalty, relying on both administrative control and populist messaging to maintain legitimacy among the population. During the first years of his rule, Lukashenko implemented policies designed to preserve social stability and retain key elements of the Soviet-era economic system. Large state-owned enterprises remained under government control, subsidies were maintained for essential goods, and social welfare programs continued to provide a basic safety net for the population. These measures won him broad support among citizens who were wary of rapid privatization and the economic upheaval that had affected neighboring states. He also focused on maintaining agricultural production and rural stability, ensuring that the backbone of the Belarusian economy remained functional despite limited foreign investment and global economic pressures. Lukashenko's governance style, however, increasingly relied on restrictions on political opposition and civil liberties. Opposition parties and independent media faced legal and administrative obstacles, while demonstrations were frequently met with police intervention or dispersal. Election processes were structured to favor the ruling party, with critics alleging manipulation, intimidation, and limitations on voter choice. While Lukashenko framed these measures as necessary to protect national stability and prevent chaos, they drew criticism from international human rights organizations and foreign governments concerned about the erosion of democratic norms. Despite this, Lukashenko successfully maintained political dominance, consolidating power through a combination of populist appeal, institutional control, and suppression of dissent. Internationally, Lukashenko pursued a foreign policy designed to balance relations with Russia, the European Union, and other global powers. He maintained close ties with Moscow, benefiting from energy subsidies, trade agreements, and political support, while selectively engaging with European nations to secure investment and aid. His pragmatic approach to foreign relations allowed him to leverage Belarus's geopolitical position to maintain autonomy and support domestic policies. He frequently portrayed Belarus as a nation capable of independent decision-making, emphasizing sovereignty while relying on strategic alliances to bolster economic stability and security. Throughout his presidency, Lukashenko has faced significant internal challenges, including economic crises, public protests, and political opposition. Periodic unrest has erupted in response to economic hardship, allegations of corruption, and disputed elections. The government often responded with a combination of concessions, propaganda, and enforcement measures aimed at restoring order and demonstrating authority. These responses reinforced Lukashenko's image as a decisive leader while simultaneously drawing criticism for authoritarian tendencies and human rights violations. His ability to withstand opposition has been attributed to his control over the security apparatus, the loyalty of key military and police units, and his strategic manipulation of political institutions. Economically, Belarus under Lukashenko has experienced periods of stability interspersed with challenges. State control of industries, centralized economic planning, and regulation of markets have preserved certain aspects of social welfare and employment, yet these measures have also limited innovation, foreign investment, and private sector development. Inflation, currency fluctuations, and international sanctions have periodically strained the economy, particularly in response to political crises or contentious foreign policy decisions. Lukashenko's emphasis on control and stability over market liberalization reflects his broader approach to governance, prioritizing predictable outcomes, state authority, and continuity over experimentation or rapid reform. Lukashenko's political longevity has been a defining feature of his rule. Constitutional amendments, electoral maneuvers, and institutional reforms have enabled him to extend his presidency far beyond the original term limits. These measures have ensured continuity of leadership, allowing him to maintain a firm grip on the state apparatus and influence over economic, social, and political life. Critics argue that these actions undermine democratic processes and concentrate power in the hands of a single individual, while supporters claim that long-term leadership has provided stability, predictability, and the ability to implement long-term policy objectives in a country with historical experiences of turmoil and external influence. During his time in office, Lukashenko has also managed relations with international organizations and foreign governments, often navigating complex geopolitical pressures. He has been criticized for suppressing dissent and restricting freedoms, yet he has also sought to present Belarus as a stable partner for trade, investment, and regional security. This duality in foreign policy, maintaining strong ties with Russia while managing cautious engagement with Europe, has allowed him to secure resources, mitigate economic shocks, and maintain domestic control. His leadership demonstrates a pragmatic, if authoritarian, approach to balancing international relations and domestic stability. Over the years, Lukashenko has faced significant challenges in managing social unrest, economic pressures, and opposition movements. Protests following disputed elections, allegations of corruption, and public dissatisfaction with economic conditions have been met with a combination of negotiation, concessions, and strict enforcement measures. Security forces have played a central role in maintaining order, often implementing arrests, dispersals, and surveillance to deter opposition activity. These measures have contributed to the longevity of his rule while raising questions about the balance between authority, individual freedoms, and democratic governance. Despite ongoing controversies, Lukashenko's presidency has achieved certain successes in terms of stability and governance. The maintenance of public services, control over state institutions, and management of the economy have prevented large-scale collapse, which has been a concern in neighboring post-Soviet states. His administration has emphasized continuity, discipline, and pragmatic policy implementation, fostering a perception of predictability and resilience. These outcomes have reinforced his political legitimacy among supporters who prioritize stability over liberal democratic reforms. In conclusion, Alexander Lukashenko's life and career illustrate the dynamics of post-Soviet leadership, combining military-style discipline, political pragmatism, and centralized authority. From his early life in rural Belarus, through his rise within the Communist Party, and to his long tenure as president, Lukashenko has shaped the trajectory of his country through a combination of strategic governance, populist appeal, and authoritarian control. His rule reflects both achievements in stability and governance and criticisms for the suppression of opposition, restrictions on freedoms, and concentration of power. Lukashenko's ongoing presidency continues to influence the political, economic, and social landscape of Belarus, leaving a legacy that is both transformative and controversial, demonstrating the enduring impact of centralized leadership in a post-Soviet context and the complex balance between stability, authority, and democratic principles in modern governance.